Okay guys, today's learning target is I can round to the 10,000s and 100,000s. So yesterday we rounded to just the thousands, and we're going to be using the same steps to round to the 10,000s and 100,000s for today. So what I want to do is I actually want to look at letter B. And so the directions say round to the 10,000. So remember, step one is to always figure out what are you trying to round to. Well, we're rounding to the 10,000. So then we have to find that place value. So we have ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. So we want to circle our 10,000s. Then we want to underline our neighbor next door. Well, we'll see that we have a 6 next door. So now let's begin with writing our starting point, our end point, and our midpoint. So if we have two 10,000s, because remember this is in the 10,000s place, how much is that? Well, we know that 2 tens is 20, and so this would be 20,000. To get our end point, we want to add one more 10,000. So if we're at 20,000 and we add another 10,000, we would end at 30,000. So now I need to ask myself, well, what is between 20 and 30? Well, I know that the number that falls in the middle between 20 and 30 is 25. So our midpoint would be 25,000. Now we're ready to plot. Well, here I have a 6 in the thousands place. So is 6,000 greater than or less than 5,000? Well, we know that 6,000 is greater than. So we're going to be plotting our number above the midpoint. So 26,101. Since we plotted our number above the midpoint, are we going to round down to 20,000 or round up to 30,000? We're going to round up to 30,000. So 26,101 is approximately or estimated to 30,000. All right, let's look at C. We're still rounding to our 10,000s place. So ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. Well, you'll notice there's a digit before. So remember, anything that comes before the place value, we want to circle it. So I have to ask myself, I have 0 10,000s. Well, how many 10,000s would that be? That would just be 0. But we have this 3. Everything else behind it turns into a what? A 0. So we write 3, 0, and then we'd have 0, 0, 0, 0. So this would actually be 300,000. Now I have to find my endpoint. My endpoint is we're going to add another 10,000. Well, if I add 10,000 to that 0, then I would have 310,000. So now I have to ask myself, if I'm at 300 and 310, what comes between 300 and 310? Well, I know that 305 comes in the middle, so our midpoint would be 305,000. Now we're ready to plot. Our neighbor next door is 6,000. Well, is 6,000 greater than or less than 5,000? Well, we know that 6,000 is greater than, so it's going to be plotted above the midpoint. So 306,867. Since it's plotted above the midpoint, do we round down to 300,000 or round up to 310,000? We would round up to 310,000. So 306,867 is estimated or approximately 310,000. All right, the biggest thing to remember, guys, is to circle the place value that you're rounding, because that's going to help you. And then whatever comes after that, you're going to turn into zeros. All right. Now it says round to the nearest 100,000. So now we're rounding to our 100,000. So that means we have to find our 100,000s place. So let's do A and B on this one. So I have ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. So the 1 falls in the 100,000s place. So how many 100,000s are we going to start with? 100,000. If I add another 100,000, how many 100,000s do we have now? We would have 200,000s. Now let's find our midpoint. Well, what is between 100 and 200? What comes in the middle? Well, I know that 150 is in the middle of 100 and 200, so our midpoint would be 150,000. Now we're ready to plot. Let's look at our neighbor next door, who is a 6. Is 6 10,000s greater than or less than 5 10,000s? Well, we know that 6 10,000s is greater than 5 10,000, so it would be plotted above the midpoint. So 168,907. Since we plotted this number above the midpoint, are we going to round down to 100,000 or round up to 200,000? We would round up to 200,000. So 168,907 is approximately 200,000. All right, let's look at B. So again, we're still rounding to our 100,000s. So let's find our 100,000s place. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. In our 100,000s place, we have 1. So what would be our starting point? Well, we have 100,000. If we add another 100,000 to get our endpoint, how many 100,000s would we have now? We would have 200,000s. And just like before, what would be our midpoint? Well, I know that between 100 and 200 is 150. So our midpoint would be 150,000. Now let's look at our neighbor next door. Our neighbor next door is an 8. Well, is 8 greater than or less than 5? Well, we know that 8 is greater than, so it would be plotted above our midpoint, 183,201. Since it is plotted above our midpoint, would we round down to 100,000 or round up to 200,000? We would round up to 200,000. So 183,201 is approximately, or rounded to, 200,000. All right, guys, we're gonna skip the bottom part. So I want you to write your percentage at the top and then come see me.